All right, welcome everybody. Today, me and Branson woke up and we decided that we wanted to piss off as many people as we possibly could. So today, we're going to be ranking all of the D&D classes because we're a D&D channel here, and what good would we be if we didn't rank all the classes, right, Branson?
So true. I agree.
So basically, if you go through this list, for me, actually, let's just jump into it. Let's just talk about our criteria going into this. First of all, the first main clarification is we're going to be focusing on the 2014 rules. Neither of us have played 2024, so I wouldn't imagine our opinions would change too much between 2014 and 2024. However, that's the main focus. So Branson, when you were ranking these, what is your main criteria going to be?
Yeah. So my main criteria, I don't know if I really have one main one. It kind of breaks down into three for me.
Okay, let's have three.
I'm gonna rank these based off of A, their ability in combat, B, their the out of combat utility. So like when you're just going around doing things. And then 3, their roleplay potential / the flavor behind the classes themselves. I think when you take into account all of those, you can come to find generally which class is, at least in my opinion, the most enjoyable to just do a session or do a campaign with, honestly.
Okay, I really like those criteria. I think that's a good way to rank it, and I think that's the best way to rank it. My criteria is going to be extremely subjective. So how fun a class is to play, kind of like what you said, how much a class brings to a campaign, whether it be in combat and roleplay and whatnot. I also love versatility in classes, so that's going to be one of my main ranking factors. And, you know, really just the vibe that it brings and how fun it can be. Those are my main things going into this.
Yeah, vibe check.
Yeah, vibe check. So, with that being said, let's freaking do this. All right. First, we have Artificer. So, just to establish some stuff, I've been DMing for like probably 7 years at this point. And I've played a lot of different characters as a player. And I've obviously ran a lot of different classes as a DM. Artificer's probably my least used. That and maybe Bloodhunter. Those are my two least. But for Artificer, I think they're cool. You know, I think they're pretty overcomplicated. That is coming from someone who hasn't played one before. But I think they can pretty easily get stuck in the mud, and it's hard to find enjoyment from them. For me personally, I feel like there's other like casting classes and half casters that are just a lot more enjoyable to play. But if you really want to be on that like Iron Man type vibe and focus into technology and magic, then it can be a lot of fun. But it's really just not for me, like, at all. I also really don't think it's all that powerful. So I gotta go ahead and put Artificer a freaking D tier. Off rip. I'm a hater.
Dang. Grade A hater, man.
Yep, straight up.
I'll be completely honest. I don't necessarily disagree with your take. I think in terms of roleplay and flavor, I think they got a lot going for them. But I think that is unfortunately where it kind of ends for me. I mean, yeah, you can be a magical tinkerer. I mean, you got guns. You can be Iron Man. But in terms of combat, I think I would almost always rather have a wizard next to me, or be playing a wizard for that matter, or a paladin as a half caster. Shoot, even a quarter caster. I think like an eldritch knight. I think their out of combat utilities is okay, but again, I think they are just outshined by almost every other alternative. So I would have to, honestly, yeah, I'd have to agree. I think D tier is where I would put Artificer.
So we both agree that Artificer is D tier. I apologize, but also don't apologize to all the Artificer players out there because you have to suffer and play Artificer. Next, on the complete opposite side is the freaking Barbarian. All right? So Barbarians are so simple. You sit down at your table, you freaking rage, you swing your big ass axe, and you just have a freaking awesome time. I have played a Barbarian before. To me, it loses some points because it's not a very difficult class to play, and I like a bit of complexity, just a little bit. But there is something fun about just sitting down, being super strong, tanking a ton of damage, and just hitting your enemies super hard. And it just makes it set out for a good time. The subclasses are really fresh and diverse, and they bring different vibes for every type of Barbarian you want to play. And there's so many races that just play super easily into Barbarian. So I love a Barbarian. I gotta put him in A tier. Barbarians are awesome.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think we are gonna differ on this one a bit. I think in terms of combat, you are hard pressed to find a better melee combatant than the Barbarian. I think hands down they're crazy. They can pump some pretty insane numbers. I think the flavor is good, but it's missing a bit for me. At least main Barbarian. Now when you get into the subclasses like I think it's Path of the Beast. Yeah, I think you can get some pretty good flavor there. But I think off riff, Barbarian, and at least in my head, is very angry and hit hard. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very enjoyable time. So that's where I lie on the flavor and roleplay ability. Now, out of combat utility, I think is where they suffer a bit.
True. Very true.
I think, like, looking at their skills off riff, it's animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. I think you can get these from other classes for sure. I think they add a bit in the sense that it's kind of, if you go the nature themed route, you can have a bit of a diet ranger or a diet druid if you really want to. But because there's not a whole lot to do, like there's not you're not casting spells, you're really just, you got your abilities and you hit hard. For that, I think I'm gonna have to put Barbarian. It's either between C or B for me. I think I would probably go, honestly, I'd go B, because I think it is a lot of fun to go absolutely crazy with rage and just destroy people. So
yeah, it's a very heavily combat focused class. So I can't. Yeah, I agree that there's not much utility outside of it. However, I think there's more utility than people take credit for. It's just a lot of people play Barbarians and then only look forward to combat, and that kind of stigma sucks. But you know, it's a fun class. It has some utility, but not very much. If it had a subclass, like say like the Fighter Battlemaster, where you could really diversify like your abilities and stuff, it'd be like an S tier class for me.
Oh yeah,
because then I'd just run that subclass and I would have a freaking awesome time throughout an entire campaign. It'd be sweet.
Yeah.
All right, I'm excited. Now, the Bard. Okay, so when I first started D&D, the Bard like had no appeal to me whatsoever. I just thought it was like a worse wizard, you know, or a worse sorcerer. I had no interest in playing it. I thought Bardic Inspiration was like kind of mid. And then I like sat down, I started messing around with it, and then I actually played a Bard. Bards are so freaking fun because you dump so much into your charisma, and you can literally just talk and talk and talk. And I love talking in D&D. Branson knows this.
Yes.
So I love the sound of my own voice. So when you just get to talk endlessly and people just like bend to your will with all your persuasion checks, deception checks, it just turns into such a fun class to play. And more often than not, you step into like the leader role as a bard just because you are the face of the party. And that's also a very enjoyable role to play for some people. And then if we get into more of the mechanics of the bards spell list is actually really solid. They have a lot of charming and illusion spells that a lot of classes don't get access to, that if used properly can be a lot of fun. And then at higher levels, they get access to all spells. It doesn't even matter what spell list it's from. You can pick any spell, which is freaking awesome. You can basically build your bard however you want to. My only small complaint about the bard is the subclasses. There's only 1 or 2 subclasses that are really worth playing, in my opinion. And I hate the melee subclasses. Like, keep melee away from bards. So that's my only slight on it. But regardless, I gotta put bard in S tier. It's a personal favorite. It's just too fun to play, and I just get carried away when I'm a bard. It's so addictive.
Yeah. That's fair. Honestly, I think you know how I feel about bards on a personal level.
Yes.
But on an objective level, I have to agree with you. Bards are crazy. In combat, they are utility casters out the wazoo. Healing, area of effect, control. You can shut down combats. You can shut down combats before combat even happens, with how you were saying, the charisma score going nuts.
Yeah.
Out of combat, the utility casting they have is crazy. They get jack of all trades, so like half your proficiency bonus on things you're not proficient in, I believe is what it is.
Yeah.
It's nuts. You're good at almost everything. You get expertise, you get magical secrets, where you can get classes from or spells from any class list. It's versatile. It's crazily good. In terms of flavor, that's personally for me where I'm not super big into it. It's just, for me, it's not the vibe I'd want to go for when I play a D&D character, but I know it's a lot of people's vibes. If you're looking at media right now, like Scanlan is the iconic bard.
Yes.
And I know that appeals to a lot of people, so I have to, against everything personal, have to agree. I would say bard is definitely S tier.
Dang, really?
Yes.
Wow, I'm actually amazed.
Yes.
I think I convinced you when I played the bard in that one campaign.
You definitely did. Being able to absolutely just shut down encounters.
Yeah, just like literally negate encounters. But a lot of that came from our DM, who was very flexible, and he really allowed me to enjoy that class just because, he was never set like, oh, this combat is going to happen. Like, you can talk your way out of this, He was very good about that.
Yeah. Good class.
Good class. All right, moving on. The Bloodhunter, created by Matthew Mercer himself. The Bloodhunter is a interesting class for me. It's a melee class. You get blood arts, which allow you to basically deal damage to yourself or have a negative effect on yourself in order to do something cool. In theory, this class to me seems freaking awesome. Like, the flavor and the backstory ideas just come to you like easily. However, in practice, using the Bloodhunter, it just always feels bad. It's hard to have an enjoyable experience playing Bloodhunter because in combat you're damaging yourself and then somehow you're always the first person unconscious. And you're really not doing that much damage, especially not as much as a barbarian or like a fighter. So you're dealing damage to yourself. You're not outputting that much damage, and you're kind of like holding the party back. And then even like your complaint with Barbarian, I have this complaint with this. Like out of combat, there's not much utility that a Bloodhunter brings. Obviously, if you're a very intelligent player, there are ways to build your Bloodhunter in order to accomplish all this. But I feel like if you were to sit down and play a campaign for a year and a half, Bloodhunter is just one of those classes that you would just get bored of almost like within a few months, a few sessions. There's definitely like a hard ceiling to this class, and I just don't find myself enjoying it very much. I apologize to all the Bloodhunter lovers out there. It's just not my vibe, and this is my least favorite class, so I gotta put it in trash.
Dang. Wow. Okay.
I know. It's very hateful, but I'm in a mood today. I'm trying to piss people off. If you disagree with me, leave a loving comment in the comment section. If you hate this video, subscribe and like, because you're a cool dude. All right, continue, Branson.
Honestly, I kind of agree in some areas of your assessment of Bloodhunter. I think the flavor is ridiculously good. It is nuts. I'm not gonna go too heavily into the subclasses, but I think the 4 subclasses that you have is just rich with backstory potential. In that category, I would give it like super SS tier. In terms of out of combat utility, though, I do tend to agree with you. They get 1 additional skill that like barbarians wouldn't, so they get to choose 3. They also get alchemist tools, which is kind of fun. But aside from being your party's like potion master and maybe tracker, I think out of combat, the utility is not phenomenal. I mean, I just have to say that. In combat, I think I agree because of how the Blood Maledict and the Crimson Rites work. You are hurting yourself a lot, so it almost, I wouldn't say it forces you to, but you're going to have to end up choosing tough or some other way of supplementing your HP, because otherwise you are going to go down pretty hard. I think if you build it correctly, the damage and your skills and abilities in combat can go nuts, but I think much like with Warlock, if you don't build it right, you could be suffering from a pretty rough character. I'm not going to say trash tier personally, but I am going to say I would put Bloodhunter in probably D tier. Honestly, probably under Artificer.
Wow, okay. So we're both not very high on Bloodhunter.
No, I mean, to be completely fair, I've played a Bloodhunter once for a one-shot, so I didn't get the full experience in a campaign.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would tend to agree.
I love Matthew Mercer. I love his content. I love all his ideas. I feel like he overtuned the Bloodhunter a little bit. It can be fun, but I just feel like it has more hurts than it does benefits, and it definitely shows. But I think Bloodhunter would be freaking awesome for a one-shot. So, yeah, I mean, if you're playing a one-shot or a little short campaign, rip Bloodhunter. Just cause. Why not?
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Moving on. This next one is Cleric. And I'm going to say something crazy right now.
Oh, no.
I have a feeling you may agree with me. And we'll see when you rank it. But I think objectively, by the facts, Cleric is the best class, period. I think it is the class of all classes.
Interesting.
So if this was a purely objective list, I would have Cleric at the tippy top. But the reasons I still like Cleric, they're super fun to play. I personally love preparing spells. I love having access to a giant spell list and preparing spells every morning. I think it's freaking awesome. I love the diversibility it brings, the utility it brings. And a lot of people hate on it because it's like extra work you have to do, yada, yada, yada. Just say you hate D&D. Like, come on now. Freaking, waking up, picking your spells for the day, trying to predict what you're going to need is freaking awesome. I love it. And the Cleric is like the ultimate version of that. The Cleric has tons of spells that bring all sorts of different play styles to the game. The subclasses are like, like they're not super diverse, but even so, you still get to pick like different things you want to do, and you can build your subclass around the type of Cleric you want to play. In combat, you are the most valuable person, period. Like you will win combats that you're never supposed to win if you have a good Cleric. The healing that it can pump out is insane, and healing is by far one of the strongest things in D&D. My only slight putback on Clerics is they don't do much damage. So if you really love pumping out damage, you probably won't find as much enjoyment for Clerics. But that's just really not a problem for me, because if I'm playing Cleric, I've already accepted that I'm going to be a support player. So I'm not really focused on damage. So for me, I just have to jump Cleric all the way up to S tier. If this was an objective list, it would be above Bard, but since I love Bards, it's going to be right below them.
Nice. No, I tend to agree with just about everything you said. I think flavor-wise, I mean, having connection with some form of god or divine. I know some people even do like clerics of believing in themselves. I don't know personally how much that checks, but I think the flavor there is phenomenal. You can go like a righteous crusader against evil. You can shoot even the first character that I joined with Shy and his group with. I originally had done like a kind of an evil inquisitor of a sort. So the flavor and options you got there are ridiculous. In terms of the subclasses, that's the only pushback I'd have. I think it's just very diverse. Diverse in the sense of flavor. Now, in terms of what you actually get from them,
yeah.
I think some of these subclasses are absolutely nutty. Twilight Cleric is the one that comes to mind most.
Grave Cleric for me.
Yeah, Grave. Yeah, Grave is. I like Grave. Grave is my personal favorite, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, in combat, yes, 100% you are the MVP. I know this because I was targeted every single combat session for like a whole year, because you knock down the Cleric, the party's ability to stay up is diminished greatly. Yes, they're not meant for damage, 100%. They are utility, they are support, they heal, they control combat, and they heal again. Damage is not what you should be looking for here. But out of combat, I would say they still shine because they have access to their entire spell list. You can do some crazy things out of combat as well. I know there's like some divination things you can do. Guidance is always just goated. They're very fun in combat, out of combat, and flavor wise. And because of that, I would agree. Yeah, I would say they are, for me, it's either I would say, yeah, they are S tier for me. I would say that they are, as much as it pains me, a little bit below Bard. I think with the lack of proficiencies, they struggle in that area. But they are still phenomenal. One of the best classes in the game, and they're great. You should give it a try if you haven't.
I'm not gonna lie, we're kind of more on par than I thought we were going to be.
Yeah, no, I thought we'd be disagreeing.
It's like we've been playing D&D together for 5 years. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I the only thing I disagree with what you said is that clerics aren't like built for damage. I think if you build around it, clerics can actually dump out way more damage than you would expect. However, you basically have to build around it, and it's really not the optimal way to play cleric. But if you're just in a mood one day and you're like, I want to play a cleric that does freaking damage, then yeah, you can do it. It's possible.
Fair enough.
All right, next is the Druid. I know the Druid is a fan favorite. A lot of people love Druid. Objectively, I think the Druid is worse, just a worse version of a cleric. I think a cleric basically does everything better than a Druid, except for wild shape. You know, obviously wild shape is a big aspect of Druid, but I think the main thing that wild shape brings to a campaign is utility. Scouting as a beast, sneaking into certain situations, being able to hide when other people can't. I think wild shape is very good for that. In combat, druids struggle a lot. They do have healing, which is, you know, the main thing that they can do in combat. They're very good out of combat. So the problem with druids for me is more often than not, druids are played in a setting where they don't really fit in. If you're in like an urban setting, which let's face it, most D&D settings are in an urban setting, in a city or in a dungeon. The druid struggles. I think it's a lot less fun to play in those settings. But the first time I ever met Branson, or the first time he played D&D with us, our buddy was DMing, and we were in a pure nature-based campaign. We were on an island, and I played druid. I played a fire druid, and that was the most fun I've ever had playing a character. And high-level druids, they get access to such cool spells, and being in a nature-focused campaign just amplified how cool the druid was. But I also have to step back and realize that just because I had a great time playing druid, it's not always the most enjoyable class to play. And then even in a lot of combats, if a big strong dude got up in my face, I was doomed. Like, it was over. There was nothing I could do. So Druid definitely has its strengths, definitely has its flaws. I gotta put it in B tier. I think in certain settings it's high A tier, but then I think in other settings it's D tier. So I just have to meet in the middle, put it in B tier. Solid class.
That's fair. Yeah, this is, again, I tend to agree with you. I think the flavor is good. I don't think it's as good as Cleric. I think it, as you say, struggles in certain scenarios. And honestly, I would generally rather be playing a Cleric if I'm looking for flavor. In combat, again, I think it's just a worse Cleric. You have access to good spells, and if you're, depending on your circle, like your subclass, I think you can go crazy. I've always been partial to Stars, Wildfire, and Moon myself. But I would tend to agree. In combat, it's not phenomenal. You are really just healing. I know everyone says Cleric is the healing class, but if you're playing Druid, you're typically gonna be healing. If I'm completely honest with you.
Yeah, unless you're a Mood Druid.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of where I am with the tier list. I would. I'll get to that in a second. But out of combat, I think your utility is again worse than Cleric. I think you still have some good utility. I believe you have access to guidance. I'm not entirely certain off riff. But you can do some cool things. Again, scouting, the versatility with Wild Shape is nice. But that gets me to my ranking in and of itself. I would say if you took the average of all Druids, you would be, in my opinion, looking at low B, high C tier. I think the subclass can make or break your experience. I think if you really want to have fun with the Druid, you need to choose a subclass that'll fit the location that your campaign's taking place in, and really what you want to do. If you want to be a healer, I think, let's see, looking off riff, I think you should probably choose Stars. If you want to go up and close and personal in combat, Moon Druid's very fun. I don't like the rest of the subclasses besides Stars, Moon, and Wildfire. I think you're gonna have a not phenomenal time if you decide to play those subclasses. So in my opinion, if you choose one of the more, shall we say, potent subclasses, I'd say you can have an A tier time. If you choose anything else, I think you're gonna be stuck with a C tier time, which forces a B.
You going above or below Barbarian?
If you choose a good class. Or it's a good subclass?
Whatever you want. Where do you want to put Druid on your tier list?
I'm putting it definitely below Barbarian.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
All right. Still in pretty much agreement here.
Yeah.
I like the Druid. It's a fun class to play. It's just very middle of the road for me. Yeah, solid class. All right, this one is interesting. Now we're on to Fighter. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about fighters. They're often described as a very basic class. They're a very introductory class. Obviously, they're pure melee, and then you can be like an Eldritch. You can be like an Eldritch Knight and get some spells and stuff, but you're still just a melee guy. So fighters can be fun. You get a lot of attacks. You get high speed. You can run around. You get do a lot of damage. You can be tanky. There's a lot of fighter subclasses that are very good. You can do like a crit build with champion. You can get a lot of diversity with battle master. Samurai gives you basically advantage on every attack you make in the entire game. It's really good. But if I'm talking about it from a fun standpoint, I think fighters really struggle out of combat. So that means like 50% of the game, 50% of your D&D session, like you're going to be doing nothing almost. There is stuff you can do, but you'll never be as impactful as like other classes. I think even combat-wise, you're not that strong. I think there's a lot of other melee classes that can do your job better, which is really harsh to say. But I think that's kind of how I feel about it. And then, like in combat, you can just get pushed to the side pretty easily. Like you can get charmed easily, and you can get restrained easily. It's just very, I don't know, it's just a very tough class to play. And then there's also not that much you can do. Like you just get into combat and you're just swinging away, and you're running up and you're swinging away, and you're tanking hits for your allies, and that's just very, it just gets repetitive after a while. The only way I would be able to play a fighter in a long-lasting campaign, like a 2-year campaign, is if I was a battle master, because battle master adds all of those other abilities that you can add in. It allows you to get really flavorful with it. It allows you to do different effects that can help your party, and that brings another level of depth that I think would be enjoyable. But that's all the other subclasses and just fighter in general, I think I would get bored after a few sessions or after a few months of playing them. There are certain circumstances where I would love to play a fighter, but overall, I would say it's one of the worst subclasses in my opinion. I'm going to put it in D, and I'm actually going to put it below Artificer. I'm not a big fighter lover.
Fair enough. I think this is where we are going to disagree.
Okay.
I think that I do, however, agree with the roleplay and flavor. I think this is going to be, if you want to have a good flavor with your fighter, you need to be good with your backstory. I don't think there's enough baked into what a fighter is to make it good on its own without player intervention or DM intervention for that matter. Out of combat, it's kind of rough. You don't have you don't have access to a lot of skills to begin with. It's not phenomenal. You're not gonna be like your cleric or your wizard where you're casting spells to figure situations out or get a 1-up on anything. But I mean, again, it's gonna require a lot of help on the player's end. Where I do disagree is combat. And this is gonna be a crazy hot take, I think fighter is the best ranged attack class in the entire game.
I can see that, and that's the angle I didn't really think about.
No, yeah, see, it's when you hear fighter, you don't really think of that. I didn't think of that for a long time until I was doing a theory craft with the battle master. If you pick up a freaking crossbow and you pick up like crossbow expert, you can get some nutty damage in from a range. It's ridiculous. With action surge on top of that, and with all the maneuvers of Battlemaster, it gets crazy. It is in my opinion the best ranged weapon, not considering casters class to do damage. Now of course you can get up close and personal, but I think you would be falling short in comparison to a barbarian. You're just not going to do as much melee damage as a barb does, which is why I think if I ever choose a fighter, I would almost always do a ranged fighter, unless I was doing like Eldritch Knight. I think that I tend to, because of how it is out of combat and with roleplay, even taking in consideration that it's fairly good in combat if you're doing ranged, I'm gonna have to say it's at a C for me. I think the subclasses can add some stuff, particularly Eldritch Knight, and then again Battlemaster. Battlemaster is really fun. I think if you're not choosing your subclass right, you are kind of put into a really rough position. Like if you're choosing champion, that's
yeah.
I would get bored very quickly. A lot of the subclasses I think are bait too. Like Arcane Archer is not phenomenal. Banneret is not good. Cavalier is not phenomenal either.
The two of those subclasses are useless. But
yeah. So I think you, if you're wanting to have a good time with your fighter, you need to speak with your DM and you need to come up with a pretty good backstory. And if you haven't considered it before, definitely consider doing a ranged fighter. It's crazy. With the Battlemaster, the maneuvers you can do are ridiculous. You can break combat with it, and It's something that I've always wanted to try, but I have other classes that I would like to play first, so I haven't yet. But yeah, in my opinion, I would say it's C tier.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's not even something I thought about as it being the ranged class, but that's 100% true. I've never personally wanted to play like a ranged fighter, but like that is the way to play it for sure.
I have a great idea with like building a Boba Fett-esque bounty hunter.
Oh yeah.
Where you do a fighter and it's just like a crossbow. I'm looking forward to doing that at some point. But
nice. All right, we finally have a difference of opinion. Which is good. I hate you. No, I'm kidding. All right. So the next is a extremely controversial one, the monk. So I know in like general opinion, the monk is pretty hated, or maybe not hated, but people believe it to be like a weak class. You know, personally, I don't care if a class is weak or not. Like if I have fun playing it, I'm gonna play it, and that's just how it is. Typically in my characters, I like nerf myself somehow with like my background or my backstory and stuff like that. But regardless, the monk to me is pretty fun. You have super movement. You throw a lot of punches. You don't do too much damage, but like stunning strike is a game-breaking mechanic. I love to fly around the battle map and hit everything. I love feeling fast in D&D when combat feels so slow. It's just an enjoyable experience. Monk definitely loses a lot of points for me because out of combat, they aren't doing very much. They kind of take on the rogue role of being like sneaking around, thievery, picking pockets, you know, things like that. And that's basically what the dexterous classes are meant to do. However, I don't think that's like the most fun thing to do. I always have more fun like interacting with NPCs, trying to convince them to do stuff, yada yada yada. But I think overall, like the monk is a pretty solid class. The subclasses are I don't know if I would say good, but they are diverse. I know the astral monk just stands out as just like a really good subclass, but like a lot of the other subclasses you could easily just pick and just still have a great time with. So like if you go into a campaign and you're wanting to just get creative with martial arts, throw a lot of punches, sometimes just win combat with stunning strike, it's a lot of fun. And I know high level monks are a lot more fun than low level monks, but overall I have to give monk a C tier. I'm kind of torn between B and C. I would say C tier just to kind of level the playing field here. It's fun. It struggles out of combat. It becomes less fun. But overall, I think it's a good class, and you'll have a lot of fun playing it.
So I do agree with your ranking, but that is only because of what is below monk and what is above monk.
Yeah.
I would almost always rather play any other class than a monk. If I want sneaky, I will play rogue. If I want hitting hard and fast, I'll play barbarian. If I want some of the things that the subclasses bring, I will play a spellcaster. I think the flavor is fairly good. I mean, the martial arts side of things has never really been my cup of tea in fantasy, similar to how like bard is not really my cup of tea, but I know it's a lot of people, so fair enough. I think some of the things they get are pretty good. I think the stunning strike is really good. But again, I would just almost always rather play something else. I am a min-maxer at heart, and when I see a monk, I see not necessarily missed potential, but I think to myself, how I have fun in a campaign is I make a strong character and I try to push it as far as it can go without pissing off the DM. Because I promise you they'll get back at you.
Yes.
I see that I would rather just do something else, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the monk. I think it is better than the. Do I think it's better than the artificer? Actually, I gotta change my opinion.
Okay.
I would almost rather play an artificer, because the utility outside of combat is not great compared to what you could be if you were a rogue. In combat, I would say you're probably better than the artificer. Okay, here's what I'm gonna put it. I would put it at D tier above artificer. In my personal tier list, I mean fighter is above monk for sure. But again, I flavor good. Out of combat, not phenomenal. You don't have a lot to choose from. Combat, I think you're okay. I think you need to, much like with the fighter, I think you need to work with your DM to come up with an enjoyable situation if you want to do it long term.
Damn, the way you were talking about it, I thought you were about to put that hoe and never play this.
No. I mean, it's definitely good. Like, it's good. It's not, I would say it's mid, actually, is where I would put it. It's not, I would almost always choose something else.
If we're talking about stats, like you brought it up, most classes can be played with 2 good stats, and you'll be fine. But for me, the monk is like, you have to have like 4 stats.
Oh yeah, it's
high.
mad. You gotta have dex, wisdom, con, and honestly strength if you want to be up close and personal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult class, but if you ever roll like crazy stats, I would recommend monk, because if you have high stats, like monk takes advantage of all of them. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, like you said, it's just kind of mid. But if you're in the mood to play a martial arts class and throwing punches, monk's the way to go.
Oh yeah, that's definitely where you want to go.
All right, moving on. We're over halfway done.
Yeah.
This one will be interesting. The Paladin. Wow. I know the internet is torn on the Paladin. Typically, Paladins, are very devoted to something, which attracts a lot of kind of quote unquote like bad players. Players that like get really focused on one thing, and that usually ends up being like a detriment to the party. But I'm kind of gonna glance over that and just pretend like everyone that plays a Paladin isn't, actively harming the party. Paladins pump out a lot of damage, but at heart, they're a support class. So, in my opinion, they have the best of both worlds. They have really good support abilities with their auras. Their auras are freaking cracked. Like, their auras are so good. And then they can just pump in a huge divine smite into something. And God forbid it's like an undead or a fiend or something, because then you're just doing massive damage. I've had paladins who crit and then smite a fiend, and they're doing like 200 damage, like ridiculous stuff, dude. And as a paladin player, like that is fun. Like if you hit something and you just one shot it, like that's like the best thing that could possibly happen to you. And then you get out of combat. And paladins have naturally high charisma, so you're getting to talk a lot, you're getting to be persuasive, you're getting to deceive. Obviously, you're terrible at things like stealth, which is a big thing in D&D, but you can still bring a certain vibe and a certain character as a paladin that you can't with some of the other classes. And I just think it's a lot of fun. So for me, I'm torn. It's a A tier for me, for sure. I don't know if it's above Barbarian or below Barbarian. I think they're pretty equal. Fair. But I love the charisma classes, so I gotta put it above Barbarian. I think it has I think it has good damage in combat, and it's a lot of fun to play in combat. And then it has a lot of fun out of combat. So yeah, it's probably directly below Cleric for me, just at the top of A.
I think that Paladin is really, really good. The flavor is immaculate. Whatever your oath is, it can be wide and vast, which allows you to do a lot of cool things. Out of combat utility, they should generally have a okay charisma, so you're not going to be able to do as much as a bard or a sorcerer or a warlock in terms of like being charismatic. Your utility spells aren't phenomenal. I think the only thing that comes to mind is Find Steed and Find Greater Steed. But in combat, you are absolutely disgusting. You can go Nova so quick, dumping smite after smite after smite with, your first attack, extra attack. If you take like a Polearm Master that I always love taking, you can go absolutely balls to the walls, insane. The auras, you defend yourself, you defend your allies, you can just crush people like it's absolutely nothing. In my opinion, I think it is the best melee class in the game, outranking Barbarian, just because of how crazy you can go with those smites. I would say that the thing that Paladin suffers from is mad. So much like Monk, you are going to need to have a good strength. Well, not like Monk. You just need a lot of good stats generally. You need a good strength. You need a good con. You need a good charisma. Dex is give and take if you want a good initiative. I know a lot of people do the infamous one-level dip into Warlock to focus just your charisma, which is, I think, really a good option. I think the capstone ability for a lot of Paladins is, I mean, it's good, but I would rather honestly have all my attacks be charisma-based so I can dump strength. I think it's crazy. I think it's really good. I think the flavor's phenomenal. I think the subclass options are crazy. This is my second favorite class in the game, and I think that's for good reason. I agree that you can get some really weirdo players who are like super devoted to the oath you take. I think the same can be said for weird DMs who is like, if you don't go letter by letter of your oath, then you become Oathbreaker instantly, and that's kind of cringe.
Unless yeah, that's cringe.
Oathbreaker. Oathbreaker is pretty fun too. I'm not gonna lie. I think this is a phenomenal class. I think you're going to have a grand time playing it. The only area that it's not absolutely perfect in is the out-of-combat utility. And for that reason, I can't justify putting it in SSS tier. So I am
wow, I thought you would have put it at the very top.
Nah. I got to say it is the top of A tier. If they had some other out-of-combat utility, then this is the best class in the game. But for now, I would say top of A tier.
Paladins are fun. Play them. They are awesome. Okay. Basically on the opposite side of Paladin, we have freaking Ranger. So Ranger gets a lot of hate. It is renowned as the worst class in the game. I am not that dramatic. I don't think Ranger is the worst class in the game. However, Ranger is kind of like the Druid of melee classes to me. It is kind of stuck between being a support role and a damaging role. It has a lot of flavor coming from the hunter-gatherer or having a pet ally or a mount that you can ride, or like the new dragon subclass, like having a pet dragon. Like those things are cool. It's just not the type of D&D vibe I've ever really wanted. I know there's a lot of people out there that love that kind of gritty vibe, and it would definitely depend on your campaign setting. Like if you're in like a nature-based, like gritty kind of survival setting, then Ranger would be a lot of fun. It's just not really my style. However, I will say this about the Ranger: the spells that Rangers get are really cool. They have their own spell list that has a lot of unique utility spells. And then even some of the damaging spells that they get are not very strong, but they're really flavorful and they're really cool, in my opinion. A lot of people haven't even looked at these spells and stuff just because they've never even thought about playing a Ranger before. But I think the spell list is one of their greatest strengths, even though they're only a half caster. I think the flavor that brings in and out of combat is awesome. But I never really find myself wanting to play Ranger, and even when I do play them, I don't think they're very strong, and I don't have a lot of fun with them. But like I said, there's certain times where it could be fun. I just don't think I would enjoy playing it over an entire campaign. I think it's got to go D tier for me, but I don't know if it is above or below Artificer. I think it's below Artificer, above Fighter for me.
Interesting. Ranger, man. So there's this bit that me and a friend go through where he loves saying that Ranger's phenomenal because he knows how much it pisses me off. I don't like Ranger. And because I am a min-maxer at heart, I look at it and I say I would rather play Druid or I'd rather play Fighter. And it's bad. It's worse than Monk, because I think Monk has a niche for their flavor. I think Ranger kind of suffers in that aspect. If I want to play a rugged, gritty character, I would just play a rugged, gritty fighter. If I want to play a nature man, I would play a Druid or even a Barbarian. Because of that, I don't think its flavor is unique. I think you can have some cool things with an animal companion, sure. Or maybe you're an outcast. I believe like the common thing everyone says is like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. I think that's right. Your out of combat utility is good. I'm definitely not gonna say it's bad. It's not as good as like a rogue in terms of skill proficiencies, but you get access to a good amount of things. I think the area that I would say Ranger shines is very limited, and because of that, it's really unfortunate. I'd say in combat, you're doing less damage than most of your alternatives. Like if you were going to be that fighter, you're doing less damage to that fighter. The only exception to that is the Gloomstalker Ranger.
Yeah. And
to be completely honest, the only time I've ever considered doing anything with Ranger is a 3-level dip exclusively to get Gloomstalker Ranger's abilities. I'm not saying you can't have fun. Again, it's very, very specific to what you're doing. And, you know, that friend who always makes that fucking joke, he has shown me time and again that you can have fun with a Ranger and you can put Paladin to shame. But personally, I would almost never choose Ranger. I would unfortunately have to say I'm putting this in trash tier.
Wow, trash. You know what? That's fair. I think Ranger gets most of its points from how unique it is, and it's a little bit of healing that it gets. But besides that, it's pretty bad. But I give it a lot of credit for its uniqueness. Obviously, you hate it because of how bad it is. But yeah, it's a tough class. It's definitely a middle of the road, but people can definitely find enjoyment in it, like our buddy that you're talking about.
Yeah, he loves it. He has a grand time.
Yeah. All right, final 4 here. These last 4 are very interesting. I think we're actually going to have a lot of different opinions on these.
I can agree, yeah.
So, Rogue. Okay. Man, Rogue is a hard one. Because, personally, Rogue is one of my favorite classes. So, I'm going to rank it high. But, the strengths that Rogue has is almost in its individuality. So, like, when you're a Rogue in a party, you're going to shine the most when you're doing stuff on your own. So, like, sneaking away from the party in order to infiltrate, or maybe you're trying to free somebody from a jail cell, or maybe you're trying to sneak into a evil base. The Rogue is so good at those things that it almost nerfs you if you were to bring your party with you. And then people, I could see the argument that Rogue is like not a very like combat strong class, and to be honest, it probably isn't the best in combat. But whenever I play Rogue, more often than not, you are like the most clutch player. Like you hit your shots at the right amount of time. You're always doing enough damage to finish off a difficult enemy, and it's fun that way. And I love traversing the battlefield in order to get sneak attack. I love trying to, coordinate my fellow teammates to find the best way to defeat an enemy. There's so much strategy that the Rogue brings to the game that I love. That's my biggest upper to Rogue. With expertise, there are ways to make it a charisma class where you are good in persuasion, but more often than not, you'll see it run sleight of hand, stealth, perception, those things, and it gets really good at those things. But expertise, in my opinion, is the best mechanic in the game, hands down. So
True.
with that versatility, it allows you to do pretty much anything. A lot of beginners play Rogue because it is simple, but if you really start to get into it, I think it's one of the most complex classes to play, and it's one of the most difficult classes to play to its optimal ability. Rogues have a lot of flavor. I have kind of like slowly start to like them less and less as time progresses. But I think I still got to put them in S tier. I think I got to put them... I'm going to put it right above Bard. Or right below Bard, right above Cleric. It's just one of my favorites. It's an OG. It brings a whole nother level to the game that other classes don't. And I just love it. I love everything about it.
Fair. I generally agree. I think they've got a lot of flavor going for them. You're a sneaky boy. You're typically the infiltrator, maybe assassin, stealer, thief. I mean, you've just got a lot of fun things you can do. And yeah, no, I'd say flavor is really, really good. Out of combat utility is absolutely incredible for those exact same reasons. I mean, stealth is incredibly useful proficiency / expertise in the game. I think it's probably the one you may roll the most besides perception. You can do a lot of stuff, and I don't think anyone's ever going to debate that. Depending on your subclass, you can do even more. So if you do like Arcane Trickster, which is my personal favorite for Rogue, you can get the best of almost all worlds. The only area that I think that Rogue doesn't 100% excel at is combat. And I think that is because they're not really supposed to. I think that Rogue is almost entirely intended for out-of-combat purposes. Now, sneak attack is really fun. It does require coordination with your allies, so if you are alone or the last member of the party up, you're probably fucked.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they can still output a crazy amount of damage. Like, the Assassin Rogue is iconic for a reason. But because it cannot stand alone in terms of combat, that is the only thing that is keeping it from SSS tier in my personal ranking. I think if we weren't just ranking it like how we are, I think you could make an argument that it is SSS. But relative to the Bard and the Cleric, I think they excel in all the areas. I think Rogue does do very good in combat, and I think it excels in out of combat and roleplay. So because it just isn't absolutely, like, relative to who it's trying to compete with, I think it falls a little bit short. But it is incredibly fun to play, wonderful, enjoyable. I would put it in A tier. I would put it probably above Barbarian and below Paladin in my ranking.
All right. Very nice. Yeah, you just gotta love a good old Rogue. It's just too fun.
It's so fun.
Okay, next. The last three we have are full casters. Are Warlocks full casters?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the three full casters remaining. So, this is Sorcerer. I know our opinions are going to be different on this one. Like, I feel like they have to be. Sorcerer, to me, well, objectively, it is the highest damaging casting class, period. It has the most damage output, and the way it does that through sorcerer points, it makes it very powerful in combat. I love Subtle Spell. I think Subtle Spell is one of the best things in the game out of all classes. But there are feats that allow you to take Subtle Spell, so you don't have to be a sorcerer in order to get Subtle Spell. But it's very easy to get it as being a sorcerer. However, that's basically where Sorcerer ends for me. Like, they do a lot of damage, and they have access to Subtle Spell, and their sorcery points are like kind of cool, but you're only going to end up using a few of their options. And they don't even really have that many sorcery point options anyways. They're an extremely good combat class. But as you guys have probably realized, like, combat really isn't that big of a deal to me. It's fun doing damage, but to me it's not the main focus of D&D. And it's not like my main enjoyment from D&D. I think they're pretty bland after that. Like, they're high charisma classes, so you can obviously get in persuasion and deception, and you can start talking your way out of situations. But, like, you're so limited in your spell list. Like, you're a full caster, but you only get a few spells, and then you're stuck with those. So basically, when you build a sorcerer, you have to be like, okay, this is the archetype I'm going to go for, and these are the spells I'm going to take, and this is how I'm going to do damage. But you're not going to really be using any of those spells out of combat because you want to be able to output damage. Like, you want to be the glass cannon of your party. So with all that being said, I don't really enjoy playing a sorcerer all that much because I think there are other casting that is more fun to me. I'm willing to sacrifice, that damage for utility. So I have to put sorcerer in C tier, below monk.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that we are gonna differ on this a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that sorcerer actually doesn't excel in combat regarding my 3 categories. I think it excels the most in roleplay and flavor. Because the sorcerer derives their strength from their bloodline, you have some crazy baked-in potential there. It is ridiculous. You can derive your power from anything. Dragons, creatures from the far realm. Let's see what I'm gonna shoot. I have it right here. I'll just look at the rest of them. From like the realms of death, divinity itself, chaos. You have so many cool, flavorful options. And because of that, I don't think you need to work terribly hard to get your backstory to supplement anything with the role-playing flavor. I think you're looking at phenomenal roleplay potential there. I think in combat, your skills are incredibly good. I think Shai is right. You probably are going to build your sorcerer as a glass cannon with maybe a bit of utility mixed in there. I always personally love polymorph. I always joke it's the best healing spell in the game. Haste is another good option, but by and large, I think you're going to be using the sorcerer as a blaster, and maybe a bit of controller, maybe a bit of utility. They really, really struggle with the spell choice selection because you only get so few spells. You kind of either have to plan ahead or just come to terms with the fact you're not going to get everything you want. Some subclasses attempt to remedy this, but I think by and large you are pretty limited. Out of combat, I think suffers for the exact same reason that in combat kind of does, because of the lack of spell choice selection. You are kind of stuck. You don't really have too many spells for out of combat utility. You can have a few cantrips here and there, I think. You have good charisma generally, so you can, yap away. I think that does help offset the lack of spell options out of combat. But by and large, I agree, you'll be good for mostly combat and roleplay. Usually, when I play or want to make a character, sorcerer almost always comes to mind for that flavor. But when I get down to brass tacks, I would almost always rather play a wizard. I think you can still flavor wizard pretty good. But by and large, I think wizard has more options, and because of that, I would have to put sorcerer in high B tier above the druid.
Below the barbarian.
Probably below the barbarian.
Okay.
I think it's good. I think it's fun. You're gonna have a good time with it. But I don't think it is like 10 out of 10 for sure. I'd say it's like a 7, 8 out of 10 maybe.
Okay, so your explanation actually reminded me something, and for those watching, this is a campaign 4 Critical Role spoiler. So if you don't want to hear that, skip ahead a little bit. But in campaign 4, there's a player that has a character, and he's pretending, or he thinks he's a cleric, but in reality, he is a sorcerer that is a child of a celestial, and I thought that was really cool. It was really genius, but I would almost attribute that more to the backstory rather than the class sorcerer. But obviously, the blood related stuff, to your point, allows you to come up with that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Very flavorful class.
All right, next is Warlock, which Branson, I know for a fact this is your favorite class, correct?
This is my favorite class. Yes.
Yes. Okay. This is not my favorite class. Warlock is a charisma-based class, so it gets points for me for that. Being a charisma-based class, you immediately get some out-of-combat utility, which is fun. However, where Warlock loses most of its points for me is when they were developing this class, they spent a lot of effort on making Eldritch Blast broken. This one, like, Eldritch Blast is the cantrip of the Warlock, and then they spend a lot of this class's abilities and utility with the Eldritch Invocations and stuff like that, trying to buff Eldritch Blast. And you can go a full Eldritch Blast build, and that's literally all you're going to be doing the entire campaign is spamming Eldritch Blast. And I don't think that's fun, personally. I think that's just kind of simple and boring. The route I would take is being more diversified with your spells. However, the Warlock nerfs itself by only having 2 or 3 spell slots, but you get them back every short rest, obviously. But how often do you take a short rest and not a long rest? In practice, it feels like it's about the same. So really, you're only getting like maybe 6 spell slots per long rest, and you're forced to cast these spells at max level. You get a lot of free spells from your subclass features and stuff like that, which is good. Whenever I play Warlock, I feel like there are better options. I feel like I'm very limited by what I can do, and it becomes almost more frustrating to me than fun. However, there is a lot of really cool flavor you can do with your Eldritch beings that you get your power from. Like, I think that's really awesome, and it leads to a lot of cool campaign moments. So it does get some points for me there. But I just feel like it's probably the worst full caster in my opinion. Yeah, I really can't get behind a Warlock all that much. Like, I've just never been compelled to play one. Like, it's never just stuck off the page to me. So you're gonna hate it, but I gotta put it in D tier. I think I'm gonna put it above Artificer.
Yeah, I figured you would go with that. I'm not surprised. A lot of people do not like Warlocks, and on paper, I completely understand. I get it. The reason I adore Warlocks is kind of twofold. One, the roleplay in Flavor is disgustingly good.
Yes.
When you build a Warlock, you are not just building your Warlock, you're also building your patron. I guess you can, but that's how I prefer to do it. I think that Pact is so rich with options for campaign developments, whether you want to make it an evil entity that you are dealing with, or maybe a bit more of a benevolent one. The fact that your power is derived from something else just is so rich for roleplay. It's super fun, and I love the idea of having like this dark presence in the back of your head that's like, all right, buddy, let's do this. I want you to do this, and in exchange you get this power. And I love a power hungry Warlock. It is something I've always enjoyed about the class fantasy. It is really cool for me. I will agree that Warlock is optimized for Eldritch Blast. And while Shy does have a point, it is kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. I think that trick is really cool. I love a agonizing blast Warlock that has something stacked on top of it. So the standard is hexing a target and then Eldritch blasting it. You can also Shadow of Moil yourself to give yourself advantage on every single one of your Eldritch blasts. And if you're an elf, you can take Elven Accuracy, and the numbers are disgusting. I also think you can have your delicious fun with a Hexblade Warlock. If you want to go get up and close personal with Hexblade, it's there. It's there for you. It's really fun, and the amount of tomfuckery you can do when you choose your spell selection is great. The Eldritch Invocations give you a lot of versatility with how you want to build your Warlock. A lot of them are geared towards Eldritch Blast for sure. But if you want to do your Hexblade Warlock, for instance, you can take Pact Master, Life Drinker, Thirsting Blade, a couple other Eldritch Invocations. Devil's Sight is always a fun one. I love the fact that you can build it and personalize it to be your Warlock. A lot of Warlocks will end up, relying on that Eldritch Blast, and that's fair. But I also think the fact that Warlocks upcast their spells to the max ability possible gives you some kind of nasty things that you can do. Armor of Agathis upcast to 5th level gives you 25 additional HP, and whenever you're hit, the enemy takes 25 damage. There's no save for that.
Good.
They just take the damage. It's disgusting. I think the Pact Boons give you another level of development that you can do. Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Chain. You want a pet? There's a pet. Pact of the Tome is my personal favorite because it's, now you have guidance. That's kind of cool. The flavor there is phenomenal too. I mean, if you take back the tome, you can take an invocation that means you just don't have to sleep anymore. It's so versatile and what you what you can do, that I just enjoy that a lot. I hate the limited number of spell slots. That sucks, but I get why they do it.
Drives me nuts, dude.
I will say, at least in the campaigns I've been a part of, almost always you will only have one combat encounter before you're doing another rest of some sort, which offsets the limited number of spell slots. Now, I don't know if that's just how we've been doing campaigns, but I think that offsets it. If you really hate it as much as I do, just take Packet of the Genie and then disappear inside of your vessel for, I think it's a minute, and enjoy your spell slots back. My biggest gripe with Warlock is their level 20 ability sucks so much ass. It is awful. Out of combat, I think that Warlocks kind of struggle a bit. I'll be honest. If you haven't taken Pact of the Chain or Pact of the Tome, you're kind of stuck a little bit with what you're doing. And for that reason, I unfortunately cannot give Warlock an SSS tier, as much as it hurts me. I think they're phenomenal. No, I can't. I have to be somewhat objective. Combat's great. Roleplay is the best. The build is the best, in my opinion. Out of combat, I am going to put Warlock in A tier underneath the Paladin.
Hey, wow. I mean, yeah, I can't deny that Warlock is good, especially if you go the full Eldritch Blast route, but I just really hate one-trick ponies, and I feel like Warlock almost forces you to be a one-trick pony, which kind of sucks. But yeah, if you guys can't tell, Branson is the freaking Warlock master. He knows everything about this class, so it's a well-deserved A tier for you.
I will say, a lot of the times when playing a Warlock, I do think to myself, I wonder what would happen if I'm playing a Sorcerer right now or a Wizard. I do like syndrome. Yeah, I do like that Warlock does have high charisma, which allows you to be a bit of a face. But yeah, the lack of spells just unfortunately means that you can't really be a utility caster outside of combat.
Yeah, for Warlock, it's almost optimal to just go full Eldritch Blast and then utility spells that can help, just teleporting and whatnot.
I really, really want to build this Hexblade I have in my head. I've had it for so long.
I've never seen a Hexblade executed well, but I know you would do it, so I would love to see it.
I would piss you off, which is why I don't want to do it. If I'm completely honest,
I don't care.
I don't want to be darkness spamming the entire combat.
Oh god, no, do that in Baldur's Gate.
Exactly.
All right, our final class, the Wizard. We've made it. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep this. It's Wizard time, fireball! Alright, I'm gonna keep this one short and simple. The Wizard is the ultimate spellcasting class for all purposes. I absolutely love how many spells the Wizard get. I love how you can copy spells into your spellbook and then prepare them the next day. I think that's freaking awesome. And the Wizard spell list feels almost infinite. There's so many spells in there. And a big thing for me in D&D is diversity. And I love having access to all those things that you can do. Yes, the Wizard is made out of paper. I don't care. The Wizard is freaking awesome. If you want to do damage, you can do damage. If you want to be, anything else, you can be anything else. The access to all the spells you get is freaking awesome. That is by far the biggest strength of the Wizard. It brings combat versatility. It brings out of combat versatility. And then you get into the subclasses. I think the wizard has the most subclasses out of all of the classes. And all of the subclasses are unique, and they add awesome abilities that are awesome for flavor. I love the wizard. I can't hype it up enough. I have never got to play a full-length campaign as a wizard, but I'm like itching to so bad. It's not the greatest in combat. Like if you wanted to go full send combat, you go sorcerer. But I just love everything that the wizard has access to. And for that, I got to put it in S tier. I'm going to put it below cleric though, because the wizard doesn't get access to healing through normal means. So I think it is the best full casting class besides cleric for me. I don't know. This is tough.
Is Bard not full casting as well?
Yeah, Bard is.
Okay.
I guess I mean by full casting I mean like non-healing full casting.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of what I mean. I'll clarify that. Or non-support. That's a better way to put it. A non-support full casting class. Honestly, I'm gonna put it above cleric. I'm gonna do it. I think wizard would be more fun for me and enjoyable to play throughout a whole campaign than a cleric would. But they're neck and neck. Like they're right there side by side.
That's fair. I agree with just about everything. Wizard is definitely SSS tier. The roleplay and flavor, you're just a fucking wizard, bro. You are the scourer of the universe for knowledge, magical authority. I mean, the iconic is some wizards are evil and do lichdom and whatnot. The subclasses can reflect just about anything, how you want to play it, whether or not you want to be let me shut down this combat right now with banishment and hold person, casting the iconic fireball and only hurting your enemies with sculpt spell, just collecting more spells with the I think the scribe wizard. The only thing that wizard cannot do is heal. And that's not even entirely true, because I believe some of the subclasses just steal from the cleric list. Or if you want to, you can take the 1-level dip in Artificer and just have Cure Wounds. Yeah. It's so versatile. There's so much you can do. You are a paper bag in combat when you can get punched, but just cast Polymorph on yourself and you're fine. It's so good. In fact, for me, it is so good that the only thing that beats it is Bard. I hate that I had to say that.
I'm so surprised.
Bard can heal, and it has good proficiencies, and because of that, it's a little bit better than Wizard. But Wizard's so good. Play a Wizard if you can. It's so fun. Best casting class flavor-wise, and not flavor-wise. One of the best casting classes. Objectively, possibly the best class. Phenomenal.
And we did it. We have fully filled out our list. Freaking awesome. Is there anything that surprises you about my list that you weren't expecting?
I was not expecting you to put Cleric on S, honestly. I would have thought you'd put Cleric as low A, high B. I didn't expect you to put Fighter as low as you did.
Yeah.
I pretty much figured that Warlock was going to be a C or a D in your opinion. I am a bit surprised by Artificer. I thought after seeing what our friend did in your campaign, you would have put it higher. But honestly, this sounds about correct. This is about like an 80% match to what I thought you would do.
Yeah. The big thing that I didn't expect from you is Bard being at the very top.
It is one of my least favorite classes to play, and to honestly be around.
It's good.
That's not true. I enjoyed watching you play it, honestly. It's just something I would never want to play for myself.
Yeah.
But it is objectively probably the best class.
Nice. All right, well, that's it. We got them all. If you agree with anything that we said, leave a nice comment. If you disagree, leave a nice comment. So, we're all lovey here in the channel, so we got to be nice to each other, or you can hate us. It doesn't matter. No. Regardless, thanks for joining us on this ranking, and we will catch you guys in our next one.
See ya.